Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a show where we will provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Sheikh Hasina vows to return as Bangladesh's political crisis deepens. Two migrant workers shot dead by terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir's Kulgam. And suicide bombing outside police station kills 17 in Pakistan's Swat. Nearly 2 years after being forced out of office, former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has announced that she will return to Bangladesh this December, despite the possibility of imprisonment or even a death sentence. But her declaration comes amid a nation still gripped by political turmoil, allegations of democratic backsliding, attacks on opposition voices, and an increasingly intense debate over Bangladesh's internal security. Our special report.
I may be detained, I may be sent to prison, they may try to enforce verdicts issued in fabricated cases, but fear cannot decide my duty to the people.
A dramatic declaration from New Delhi. Addressing journalists through an audio-only virtual press conference hosted by the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia, Sheikh Hasina declared that she would return to Bangladesh in December. The former Prime Minister said her return was not about reclaiming power but about restoring democracy, secularism and stability. Prepared to face imprisonment or even a death sentence, Hasina insisted that fear would not stop her from standing beside the people of Bangladesh. She demanded the lifting of the ban on the Awami League, the release of political workers, restoration of democratic institutions, judicial independence, and protection of media freedom. She also appealed to the international community to support what she described as Bangladesh's struggle for democracy, justice, and peace.
The next decade can be a decade of recovery and renewal, but only if democracy is restored and the people are allowed to decide their own future. That is why I make these demands clearly. The ban on the Awami League must be lifted, political prisoners must be released, false cases must be dropped, freedom of speech must be restored, media freedom must be protected, judicial independence must be guaranteed.
Hasina's announcement comes against the backdrop of Bangladesh's deepest political crisis in decades. Her government collapsed in August 2024 following months of student-led protests and a violent crackdown. The United Nations estimated that up to 1,400 people were killed during the unrest, while Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal later sentenced Hasina to death in absentia over alleged crimes against humanity, charges she rejects as politically motivated. Nearly 2 years later, Bangladesh remains deeply polarized. The Awami League says thousands of its leaders and supporters continue to face arrests and legal proceedings, while Bangladesh's authorities maintain that legal action is being taken under due process and is part of accountability for the violence of 2024.
Millions of her supporters and the people are awaiting to welcome her. Defying all the atrocities, killings, rapes, lootings, extreme violence, so need to stop.
If there was an indication of just how divided Bangladesh has become, it came within hours of Wednesday's press conference. Former Bangladesh cricket captain and former Awami League parliamentarian Shakib Al Hasan appeared virtually alongside Hasina. Hours later, his ancestral home in Magura was attacked with petrol bombs and vandalized by unidentified assailants. Police said windows were smashed before attempts were made to set the property on fire. The political crisis has also intensified debate over Bangladesh's security landscape. At the same press conference, Sheikh Hasina's son Sajib Wazid Joy alleged that terrorist organizations dismantled during the Awami League government are re-emerging and claimed that Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence or ISI now has an open hand inside Bangladesh.
what should concern India most is Bangladesh has become another Pakistan on India's eastern side. You have another Pakistan today on your eastern front. Foreign intelligence services, especially ISI, has an open hand. Militants, hundreds of convicted terrorists that our Awami League government arrested and convicted and put behind bars, have been released from prison. Hizb ut-Tahrir marches openly. Al-Qaeda operatives speak at public rallies. This is what is happening in Bangladesh.
During Sheikh Hasina's years in office, Bangladesh carried out extensive counter-terror operations against organizations including Jamaat ul Mujahideen Bangladesh, Neo-JMB and Ansarullah Bangla Team, while Hizb ut-Tahrir remained a banned organization. The Awami League now alleges that prolonged political instability has created space for some Islamist organizations to regain visibility and influence. Whether Sheikh Hasina's planned return marks the beginning of a political comeback or another phase in Bangladesh prolonged political confrontation remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that nearly 2 years after the dramatic change in power, Bangladesh continues to grapple with sharp political divisions, competing narratives over democracy and accountability, allegations of human rights concerns, and growing regional security implications.
Terror has once again cast a shadow over Jammu and Kashmir. 2 migrant workers from Chhattisgarh were killed after terrorists opened fire in South Kashmir's Kulgam district in yet another targeted attack on unarmed civilians. Coming days after a policeman was killed in Anantnag, the incident has renewed concerns over targeted killings linked to Pakistan-backed terror proxies, even as security forces intensify counter-terror operations across the valley.
The latest attack unfolded in Kulgam, where 2 young migrant laborers from Chhattisgarh employed at a brick kiln were shot by terrorists. One died shortly after the attack, while the second succumbed to injuries the following morning. The killings have once again exposed a pattern that has repeatedly emerged in Jammu and Kashmir over recent years. Terrorists increasingly targeting unarmed civilians, migrant workers, and other vulnerable groups instead of engaging security forces directly. According to Indian investigators, outfits such as the Resistance Front or TRF have increasingly been used as front organizations by Pakistan-based terror infrastructure to sustain terrorism while attempting to mask direct organizational links. The National Investigation Agency's charge sheet into the 2025 Pahalgam terror attack states that both TRF's claim of responsibility and its subsequent denial originated from Pakistan-linked digital handles, reinforcing investigators' assessment of cross-border direction. Migrant laborers have become symbolic targets because they contribute to infrastructure projects, tourism, construction and economic activity across Jammu and Kashmir. By attacking them, terrorists seek to generate fear, discourage outside workers from entering the valley, and undermine development initiatives.
2 लेबरर जो छत्तीसगढ़ के यंग लड़के थे 24-25 साल के, वहाँ लोगों का काम मतलब भट्ठे का काम कर रहे थे, जो ब्रिक क्लिन होता है, तो ये अपनी रोज़ी कमाने के लिए आए हुए थे, तो उनका नाम पूछकर, धर्म पूछकर उनको मारा है। ये वैसा ही है, छोटे स्केल पे, जैसे पहलगाम में बैसारन वैली में हुआ था। तो इसकी जिम्मेवारी TRF जो लश्कर का एक फ्रंट है उन्होंने लिया है। तो मुझे लगता है पाकिस्तान के वहाँ से इनको इशारा आया है कि आप कुछ हरकतें तेज़ करिए ताकि हमसे ध्यान यहाँ POJ से इधर आए।
The Kulgam killings also come barely days after terrorists attacked a police party in Anantnag, killing head constable Ashik Hussain during Amarnath Yatra security deployment. Together, the 2 attacks suggest an attempt by surviving terror modules to demonstrate operational capability despite sustained counter-terror operations. Since the 2025 Pahalgam massacre, Indian security agencies have intensified intelligence-based operations across Jammu and Kashmir. Operations including Operation Mahadev led to the elimination of terrorists accused in the Pahalgam attack, while Operation Sindoor targeted terror infrastructure across the line of control following the attack. The Kulgam killings come at a time when Pakistan is facing mounting criticism over the situation in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. As protests, political unrest and allegations of repression continue to dominate headlines from across the line of control, security experts believe Pakistan's terror proxies are attempting to revive violence in Jammu and Kashmir to alter the narrative and restore focus to the valley.
I think it is an attempt to target outsiders, an attempt to target non-Muslims who are coming from outside and working here. It is an attempt to derail the development process of Kashmir, because there are so many projects going on in Jammu and Kashmir, tunnels, highways. So people are working all across, and it will ultimately harm the local population because they don't work and they need labor from outside. Ultimately, it will harm the people of Kashmir. But this is larger designed to divert attention from what is happening within POJK, because internationally it's an embarrassment for Pakistan what is happening. Their whole narrative has been punctured by people of POJK.
The killings in Kulgam underline the continuing challenge posed by targeted terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. While security forces continue sustained counter-terror operations and investigations into the networks behind these attacks, the focus remains on preventing further violence against civilians and dismantling the infrastructure that enables terrorism to persist.
Pakistan is once again confronting the harsh reality of rising terrorism. A deadly suicide bombing outside a police station in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Swat district has left at least 17 people dead, including police personnel, while dozens remain injured. The attack, claimed by Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or TTP, has renewed concerns over Pakistan's worsening internal security environment. The blast comes amid a sharp increase in terrorist attacks targeting security forces across the country's northwestern region. Here's a special report.
Scenes of devastation unfolded in Pakistan's Swat Valley after a suicide bomber struck outside the Kabul police station during a pro-police peace rally. The explosion tore through a crowd gathered to express solidarity with security forces, killing at least 17 people, including police personnel and civilians, and injuring more than 30 others. Authorities said the bomber was intercepted at the police station's entrance before detonating his explosive vest, preventing an even greater tragedy. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan later claimed responsibility for the attack.
गेट पे हमारे लोग होशियार थे और उन्होंने रोक लिया। इसी वजह से हमारा जो ये सुइसाइड ब्लास्ट हुआ उसमें एक तरह से नुकसान भी हमारे लोगों का ज़्यादा पुलिस का इसीलिए हुआ कि उन्होंने गेट पे रोका और गेट के अंदर जैसे ही वो पहुँचे तो फिर उसने सुइसाइडर ने अपने आप को ब्लास्ट कर लिया। तो वो उस थ्रेट अलर्ट की वजह से और प्लस जो हमारी प्रेजेंस या ये चीज़ें थी उनकी वजह से वो चीज़ एवर्ट हो गई। तो अब जाहिर है कुछ जैसे मैंने कहा कि हमारे जैसे पुलिस के भी एहलकार 6 शहीद हैं और सिविल साइड के भी शहीद हैं।
Investigators recovered the remains of the suicide bombers and launched a search for possible accomplices. Police officials confirmed that security at police installations across Swat has been placed on maximum alert, while forensic teams continue examining the blast site to establish the full sequence of events.
जी ये खुदकश धमाका था। खुद का जो सुसाइड बॉम्बर है उसका सर हमें मिल गया है। मज़ीद तफ्तीश जारी है। अभी जाहिर है बहुत कबल अज़ वक्त होगा पूरी तफ्तीश इस टाइम बताना, लेकिन सुसाइड बॉम्बिंग।
For Pakistan, this was far from an isolated attack. It is the latest reminder that the TTP has steadily rebuilt its operational capability since the Afghan Taliban returned to power in Kabul in 2021. The TTP, often referred to as the Pakistani Taliban, shares ideological roots with the Afghan Taliban but operates independently, seeking to overthrow the Pakistani state and impose its interpretation of Islamic law. The group has intensified attacks on military installations, police checkpoints and intelligence facilities, particularly across Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. Pakistan has repeatedly alleged that TTP commanders operate from sanctuaries inside Afghanistan, claims the Taliban administration has consistently rejected. Among those killed in the SWAT bombing were police personnel deployed to secure the rally, underscoring that Pakistan's security forces remain among the primary targets of extremist violence.
You cannot feed milk to snakes in your backyard and then expect that they will not bite you. This is exactly what is happening. Now, at the base of it is the kind of fundamentalism that Pakistan has been pushing among its citizens, especially after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And we can trace this back to 77 when General Zia took over, toppled Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and certainly from 1979. This is the kind of poison that the Pakistanis have been feeding into their population, more so in a place like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
The Swat Valley was once considered a symbol of Pakistan's campaign against terrorism after large-scale military operations pushed extremist groups out of the region more than a decade ago. However, repeated attacks in recent years have fueled concerns that militant networks are gradually re-establishing their presence. As funeral prayers were held across Swat, grief gave way to anger. Residents described an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty, recalling the years when the valley had become synonymous with militant violence.
बहुत अफसोस की बात है, सारा ज़िला स्वात आज डिस्टर्ब है। कल रात को भी बहुत लोग परेशान थे, आज भी परेशान है और ये सुनसान बस शहर है, पड़ा है, हर चेहरे पे गम है, लोग बहुत मायूस है।
Just days before the SWAT attack, terrorists targeted a joint security checkpost in Tank district, killing at least 15 people, including 14 security personnel, after ramming an explosives-laden vehicle into the compound. The assault was also claimed by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. The back-to-back attacks highlight the growing operational capability of militant groups despite repeated counter-terror operations announced by Islamabad. For years, Pakistan projected itself as a victim of terrorism. However, security analysts have long argued that Islamabad's distinction between so-called good terrorists and bad terrorists created a dangerous ecosystem where groups once viewed as strategic assets for regional objectives eventually evolved into the threats to the Pakistani state itself.
Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir has once again become a flashpoint of political unrest. What Islamabad projected as a democratic exercise has instead been overshadowed by violence, allegations of electoral manipulation, internet shutdowns, and a growing public boycott. As polling entered its second phase, reports of clashes, civilian deaths, and heavy security deployments dominated the region. Protesters and opposition groups accuse Pakistan of suppressing dissent, while residents say fear has replaced faith in the electoral process. Our report.
Instead of campaigning and political debate, Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir witnessed burnt vehicles, blocked roads, tear gas, and a massive security deployment ahead of the second phase of regional elections. Muzaffarabad, the capital of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, resembled a conflict zone as tensions escalated following violent clashes between protesters and Pakistani security forces.
इस बार मेरा पहला इलेक्शन है, पहली दफ़ा मैं वोट कास्ट करने जा रहा था, लेकिन जो रियासत की सूरत हाल है उसको मद्देनज़र रखते हुए मैं अपना वोट बिल्कुल कास्ट नहीं करूँगा, क्योंकि इस वक्त रियासत की बदतरीन सूरत हाल है। अगर बात की जाए मुजफ्फराबाद की, तो कल मुजफ्फराबाद में मुख्तलिफ मुकाम पर सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस की जानब से फायरिंग की गई, जिसमें जो पलेट का मुकाम है, जिसमें 6 या 7 से ज़्यादा बंदे जो ज़ख्मी हुए और 3 बंदे हैं जिनकी शहादत का भी कहा जा रहा है, जिनमें से एक का जनाजा प्लेट के मुकाम पर कल रात को 10:30 के दरमियान जो अदा किया गया।
The boycott reflects a wider loss of confidence among residents. The second phase covered 9 constituencies in Muzaffarabad division along with 12 refugee constituencies. According to the Election Commission, more than 1.2 million eligible voters were expected to vote across 21 constituencies with 1,483 polling stations established. Officials classified 533 polling stations as highly sensitive, highlighting the volatile security environment. The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which won the previous regional election in 2021, boycotted the polls, alleging electoral fraud and political interference. Meanwhile, Pakistan's ruling Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz had already secured 9 of the 13 seats contested during the first phase. The violence has unfolded against the backdrop of an ongoing confrontation between Pakistan's authorities and the Joint Awami Action Committee. The movement, founded in 2023, emerged from public anger over soaring electricity tariffs, governance issues, and demands for electoral reforms. It later expanded into a broader campaign, accusing Islamabad of interfering in the political affairs of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The regional administration banned the Joint Awami Action Committee in June, triggering protests across several districts. Since then, banking services, internet connectivity, and transport have faced repeated disruptions, further isolating the region. Joint Awami Action Committee leaders have claimed that more than 30 people were killed during the crackdown around Rawalakot in the days leading up to the election.
बरामदे में बैठ के नाश्ता कर रहा था तो जब फोर्सेस आई हैं यहाँ पे तो उन्होंने अंधाधुंध फायरिंग की है जिस वजह से गोली इसके चेस्ट में लगी है और ये एट द स्पॉट यहाँ पे फर्स्ट एड भी ना होने की वजह से ये कोई आधे पौने घंटे में यहाँ पे ख्वातीन ने बहुत कोशिश की, घर में ख्वातीन थी, बाकी क्योंकि यहाँ पे मर्द थे नहीं उस वक्त शदीद फायरिंग और शेलिंग हो रही थी इस एरिए में तो कोई फर्स्ट एड नहीं दे सका जिस वजह से इस बच्चे की यहाँ पे डेथ होगी। 35 साल इसकी उम्र है।
Polling in the second phase concluded with extended voting hours in parts of Muzaffarabad because of reported turnout. However, opposition parties filed more than 25 complaints, alleging ballot stuffing, attacks on party workers, and procedural irregularities. Residents argue that meaningful elections cannot take place amid shutdowns, restrictions, and fear.
मुज़फ़्फ़राबाद और आज़ाद कश्मीर इस हालत में नहीं है कि यहाँ पे इलेक्शन हो सके। इंटरनेट बंद है, मामूलात ज़िंदगी बिल्कुल मुअत्तल हो के, तो इस सूरत हाल में इलेक्शन में ये नहीं समझता कि इलेक्शन होना चाहिए। वोट मुंतखब करने के लिए अपने 5 साल आपने हुक्मरानों को देने हैं तो उसके लिए एटलीस्ट फ्री एंड फेयर इलेक्शन होना चाहिए।
Many residents also linked the growing boycott to public sympathy for the banned Joint Awami Action Committee following the crackdown.
जो इसके पीछे एक तहरीक चल रही है, जो 2 महीने से तहरीक चल रही थी कल-अदम एक्शन कमेटी की, तो मैं तो ये समझता हूँ बेसिकली लोगों का जो बाइकआउट करने का जो रीज़न है वो एक्शन कमेटी है कि एक्शन कमेटी पे जो जुल्म और सितम हुए हैं इस वजह से लोगों के अंदर एक हमदर्दी पाई जाती है।
The unrest in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir reflects a widening gap between Islamabad's claim of democratic governance and allegations from opposition groups and sections of local residents over political interference, restrictions, and the handling of protests. With the final phase of voting still pending, concerns remain over whether the electoral process can restore confidence or whether it will further deepen the region's political divisions.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@nin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.